Welcome back to Mr. Wicklam's Virtual Classroom, where today what we're going to be looking at is fractions of whole numbers. So fractions of whole numbers. So find yourself in a situation where you're talking about something and you want to know what the fraction of that is. Now, for instance, it may sound weird that Canada has a birth rate of approximately 1.7 children. So 1 and 7/10 children. Can you have 7/10 of a child? Well, when you're averaging it out, yes, you can. What about if we look, for instance, where that's kind of a situation where that fraction like doesn't make sense, right? Because you can't have 7/10 of a kid. But whereas what does make sense is that if I would say that Bob covered himself half his body with blue paint. Okay, now we're dealing with a person, but we're also putting it into a fraction, right? So half of Bob is covered in blue paint. Now, when we deal with whole numbers, what we're dealing with is we're not dealing with the fractions anymore, but we're making a fraction out of it. So, for instance, let's just take a look at this example that I have here. It says that if I have 6 apples and half are red, how many are red? Now, when we look at this fraction, what the bottom number is telling us is that there are going to be 2 columns. 1, 2. Okay, and that one of the columns is going to be the red apples. So, I'm taking the liberty of drawing them out for you. Okay, we got 2 columns. You count up to 6 because there's 6 apples. And so we got 1, 2, 3 that are red. So how many are red? So there are 3 red apples. Now, that may seem fairly easy to some, but what you need to really keep in mind is that the bottom number represents how many columns you're going to draw if you're going to draw dots. If you're going to do dots, the red tells you, the bottom number tells you how many columns of dots you're going to draw. Now in your workbooks you might see something a little bit different. You may see something like this, and they're grouped for you. So the bottom number could either tell you how many columns or groups there are. So when we're looking at something like this, how many groups do we have? Well, 1, 2, 3. We have 3 groups. And how many are in each group? 2, 4, 6. Okay, so what I want to know is we want to know what this group equals. So this group, there is 1 of 3, so 1/3 of how many are in total? 6. Okay, so basically what we did here is 1/2 of 6. Okay, and now we're just doing it in a different way. 1/3 of 6. So taking a look at that and knowing the information we know from this, what can we say for the bottom? Well, first of all, there's still how many groups in total? 3. Okay, how many groups are we looking at? 1, 2. So we have 2/3 of 6. And we know that 2/3 of 6 is going to equal what? 2/3 of 6 equals 1, 2, 3, 4. It equals 4. Okay, that's really what we are going to be doing. We're going to be doing just kind of taking whole numbers like 6, and we're going to be looking at the fraction of that whole number. So as we go down further, I got more examples of this for you. So again, I've shown you in the columns, we're doing the dots. So we want to know what half of 4 is. So we need 2 columns, which I have drawn, and we're going to circle one of them. So how many columns to circle, or how many columns we're looking at. Okay, so we're going to circle 1. So 1/2, so let's just write it out. 1/2 of 4 equals what? 1, 2. Equals 2. Okay, now let's look at 8. So bottom number, remember the bottom number represents how many columns we're going to have. So it's 2. I have 2 columns. Top number represents how many columns we're going to look at, or how many columns we're going to circle. Well, I circle 1. So 1/2 of 8 equals 4, because there's 4 dots in that column. Okay, I think this is pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory, as long as you follow the rules I've given you. So now what I've done is I've wrote it out. 1/2 of 14. Okay, this is half, same thing. How many columns are you going to need? Well, half is 1/2, so you're going to need 2 columns, which I have drawn. We are looking at how many columns. What are we going to circle, or how many are we looking at? 1. So I circle that. So 1/2 of 14 equals what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay guys, if you follow the formula, it's pretty simple, it's pretty basic, you will be able to understand it for sure. Okay, so moving on to D. This is where I'm going to introduce something to you, okay, in question D. So we want to look at 1/3 of 15. Okay, like I said, the bottom represents how many columns we need, 3. And all I did with the dots, I just went to 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's all I did. Okay. Now we're looking at one column, this right here. Okay. And we want to know how many there are. Now there's 2 different ways of doing this. We can do it this way, and you can keep drawing dots for the rest of your life. And if the number gets up into the thousands, good luck to you, because that's a lot of dots to draw. Or what we can do is we can divide. Okay? What we can do is we can divide 15 divided by the bottom number right over here, divided by 3. Okay? So 15 divided by 3 gives us what? Well, if you count up by 5s, or if you count up by 3s, sorry, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. I have 5 fingers in the air, so 15 divided by 3 equals 5. Well, let's take a look at what I circled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 1/3 of 15 equals 5. Alright, what we're going to do is, I'm not even going to circle the next one. I just drew the dots just so you can see it, just so you can have proof of what I am doing. So what you may also see is we're going to look at fraction statements. So fraction statements, pretty simply, 1/3 of 15 equals 5. That's all a fraction statement is. Okay, I've done fraction statements up here for you. That's all it is. We're basically just writing a sentence using the fraction. Okay, instead of words, we're using the fraction. So let's move on to E. E, if you take a look at it, now we're looking at not just 1/2 or 1/3, we're looking at 3/4. Okay, 3/4 of 12. So this still tells us how many columns we need. Drew the 4. The 3 tells us what? How many we're going to circle. Okay, but I'm not going to circle any right yet. Okay, because I want to do the method that I showed you down here. Alright, now if you remember from what I told you before, 12 is going to get divided by 4. So what is 12 divided by 4? Well, 12 divided by 4, if I count up by 4s, okay, 4, 8, 12. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. Now, here is 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, you know that we need to circle 3 of these. So you know that my answer is not going to be 3. So you're probably saying, Mr. Wicklum, what are you doing here? Now what we need to do is we need to multiply this by the top number because we're looking at 3 columns. Okay? So 3 times 3 equals, well, 3, 6, 9. 9. So if I circle 3 columns, which I'm going to do for you, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? I get the same answer. So all I did is I divide by the bottom, and then I multiply by the top. Okay? So divide by the bottom and multiply the top. Okay, so I'm going to divide by the bottom, which is what I did. 12 divided by 4. This was the bottom, right here. Right? 12 divided by 4. And then I multiplied that answer by the top. And I got 9. The exact same answer that you're going to get here. Okay? So as you go through this, you're going to get word problems and you're going to get bigger numbers as well. So for instance, let's take a look at that. So finishing our fraction statement, 3/4 of 12 equals 9. Okay? 2/3 of an hour. So first of all, let's break this down. So what is 2/3 of an hour? So how many, I'm just going to use short form, minutes in an hour. So how many minutes are there in an hour? Well, there is 60. So what we're looking at is 2/3 of 60. Okay, would you agree with that? Good. Now, let's take a look at how we're going to figure this out. Okay, you can draw dots. You go right ahead and you draw all the dots that you want to draw. Okay, you're going to have to draw 60 of them. I'm going to do it the way that I showed you up here with division. Okay, so I'm going to go 60 divided by 3. Okay, so what I'm going to look at is, you're going to be like, Mr. Wicklum, how are you going to do that? Well, there's 2 ways to go. I can figure out what I need to count up by, or what I can do is I could do long division. So 3, 60, so 3 into 6 goes twice. That's 0, bring down the 0, and I have 0. Okay, because 3 divided into 0 is 0. So what I get is I get 20. Okay, so I know that basically 1/3 of an hour is 20. Okay, so what I can do is I could even draw a little bit of a pie here. Pretend that's my clock, right? So this is 20, this is 20, and this is 20. So now, what is 2/3 going to be? Well, 1, 2. I can add those together, 20 plus 20. So let's do that. It's going to give us 40. Or I can do 20 times 2. Well, 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 2 is 40. So 2/3 of an hour equals what? So let's say it. 2/3 of an hour equals 40 minutes. Okay? I showed you a couple different ways on how to do that. None of them involve drawing dots. Now let's take a look at the last question. The last question says, Charlotte is half of Max's age. Okay, you guys remember Charlotte and Max, you guys made them up, so you should remember them. Charlotte is half of Max's age. Okay, Max is 12 years old. How old is Charlotte? So, what you want to begin to do is you want to begin to fill in each word that you know with a math symbol and what you don't know with a blank. Okay, so what do we know? Well, we know Max is 12 years old. Okay, and we know Charlotte is half of Max's age. So basically what we want to figure out is we want to figure out what half of 12 is. So we know that 1/2 of 12 equals a blank, because half, this right here, is all half of Ron's age. Okay, that's what that half equals, right? Half of Ron's age. And this right here, Ron, Max, I don't know where I got Ron from, I apologize, this is Charlotte, age. Okay, now what's half of 12? Well, we could figure it out. We can do the dots. Okay, you guys figure it out however you see fit. You can do dots, so let's do dots over here. Okay, so how many columns are we going to need? The bottom number tells us we're going to need 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many columns are we going to circle? 1. And we easily get Charlotte's age. Okay, how many dots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or what we can do is 12 divided by 2, count up, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And I have 6 fingers, and I'm only looking at multiplying by 1, so then 6 times 1 equals 6. So I have identical answers, so we know that Charlotte's age would be 6. Okay? Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. But that's all I have for today. This is Mr. Wicklum, signing off.